meeting. I want to welcome everybody tonight. We have some legislators here, and I wanted them to come especially to hear the public defenders and the prosecuting attorneys plea for money for positions because they have a stake in this also. Let's stand for the prayer and pledge. Oh God, guide us, give us the wisdom to represent and to help what we do, help all the people of Washington County through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, do you have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion. Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Our first person tonight for budget discussion is Treasurer Bobby Hill.
Hello, everybody. All right.
4.7, 4.8 in your budget book.
This is my general fund treasurer budget. Only thing that comes out of here is personnel, so I'll spend like 100% of that. This year I'm moving 2 of my deputy positions to my automation fund, so that's why there's a difference in the requested budget and last year's budget. Are there any questions on just that part of it? That's just strictly personnel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the new budget request is the copies that I have on your desk.
Are there any questions? Okay, go on.
Now to the
Automation.
automation fund.
84.
The main difference is, just like I mentioned just a second ago, is the 2 positions have now moved into the automation fund for this year's budget, or next year's budget. And not much changes from year to year on what I do as far as spending money. If I don't need it, I don't buy it, but like the computer line item, that's sort of the lifeblood of my office, so I keep a few extra dollars in there in case something happens, lightning strikes the building and a couple of computers go out and need to have them, and I need them that day. So that's the reason there's some leeway in some of those, but on average I spend $9,000 or $10,000 a year, not counting personnel. So, is there any questions that?
Okay, J.P. Deakins.
Treasurer Hill, can you just explain to us what kind of requirements you're having to meet to move those salaries over into automation fund?
What kind of requirements?
Yeah, what kind of hurdles are we having to meet there's certain requirements that you have to meet to move those over, is that correct?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean,
You're just free to move those over?
yes, the automation funds used to be strictly for automation, computers and such, but they made it a little easier now, so any function of the treasurer's office can, same way with the collector, can go out of the automation fund. So no, there's no problem moving them.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I move to pass.
Do I have okay, J.P. Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Are we going to talk about the revenue projections before you're done tonight?
No, we're doing
It's fine
that.
with me, but whatever they want to do,
Say,
whatever
Okay,
the chair wants to do.
okay.
Bobby Hill has made some new projections, and why don't we discuss those at the end of the process? Or do you want to ask him questions about it?
I have questions for him, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and I just went through them quickly,
All right.
Mr. Hill. Am I correct that on the carryover line items, every line item either stayed the same or went up except for one account? Is that correct?
Compared to last year?
No, compared to your last
Oh,
projection.
last projection.
I'm trying to keep up with all of these.
Yeah, I'm not sure which, for the most part, they went up. There might have been maybe the road fund.
No, well, what I think I determined was the jail fund rollover went down. The jail fund revenue projection went down. And my question is, do you know what caused that?
Just looking at the numbers, the first ones I gave you were like from August or something like that, August or early September, I can't remember.
I'm looking at the previous one was October 7. This one's October 7 revised
Okay,
22nd.
I think it was 700,000, then it dropped to 600,000. That's just based on, I compare it to last year. And you got, that's an extra 2 weeks, and I have to go out to December 31st. Then I have to keep in my mind that there's gonna be $200,000 or $300,000 spent at the first of next year that rolls back into this budget, so that's just a little caution on my part.
Okay. Did the projected revenues go down, and was that tied to the jail fee and the interlocal agreement fee projections?
I put 500,000 on that per capita on the latest ones. I'm not sure what the 7th had.
Well, because the projected revenue dropped over 300 grand in 2 weeks.
Oh, in the jail fund?
Well, yes,
just
in the-
overall?
in the jail fund.
Okay, I would have to, let me see if I can. I think I dropped state and federal prisoner care a little bit, again, comparing to last year, each month, what we got in. And a lot of that is just erring on the side of caution.
I get
So,
it.
Okay,
Just, I'm trying to keep track of
yeah,
it.
all
that's all.
right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if you had read your pamphlet that was given out from the state on doing budgets, the one thing that it said in there, you needed to have someone that could project the revenue accurately. And Bobby Hill has done this consistently since he's been in office. So, I think we can rely on his projections. Yes, he's a little bit conservative, and it usually is a little bit over what he projects, but I think that's good. Okay, Judith, J.P. Yanez.
Just a quick question. The electric, gas, and water, there's no figures for this year?
They will charge whenever they get all the electric bills in, they'll charge it back to this. So I won't
Okay.
know until like January, February, what that
Perfect.
number is.
Thank you.
J.P. Bowman, did you have a question? Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll have a motion and a second to pass this budget. All those in favor?
There's no second. Second. You have a motion to pass.
Oh, I thought that you second. Oh, okay. Okay. I have a motion by J.P. Lemming, a second by J.P. Ecke. All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, motion passed. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
All right. Our prosecutor, Matt Durrett. Page 456, 457.
I am. Sure, I do. I like to think I'm worth it, but I don't know. My letter and, the budget proposal kind of are self-explanatory, but I would like to point out a couple of things. I guess it's 4-57, the listing of the salaries. The two positions that I've requested, in the budget, it listed at 67.5. I had requested 62.5. I'm, not trying to lose, give away any money here, but
62.5, okay.
that's what I put in my request.
Okay.
And so,
It'd be on 457 in the new positions.
yeah, in the bottom two.
Should be 6,
Yes, I'd requested 62.5 because that's roughly what a starting position is that the state pays for our entry-level positions. So that's a little bit off. I mean, that's $10,000, so that's a little bit less. And I'd also put in a request for an additional $5,000 for our part-time salaries. I included that so that we could look into getting another law clerk, which would help take some of the burden off of our prosecutors. And I had tried to make it budget neutral or whatever by moving some money around in other services and charges. I didn't quite get there because I requested an additional $5,000, and I cut down my budget request by about $3,500. So it would be an increase of $1,500 in that regard if you take out the two positions. So I kind of laid out my rationale and my request in my request letter. It's things aren't slowing down. We're trying to keep up. As I stated in that letter, we had requested 3 positions from the state. I think it may have been J.P. Bowman asked me last time or last year if I thought that additional positions would help, and my response was that for the most part, the deputy prosecutors are state employees, and the state has taken us over. There is a provision in the statute that provides that that the counties can create positions, but I believe those are state positions, and I felt an obligation to go to the state first. There were issues in terms of, with this budget cycle with the state. State employees had gotten a raise a couple of years ago, and so the governor had sent out a request of the agency heads that no new positions be requested, but we felt the need to make the request because there were numerous prosecutors around the state that had a similar need to us, and so included in that budget package were the request of 3 prosecutors for Washington and Madison counties. And ultimately, statewide, the legislature could only give us 2 total for the entire state, and I was fortunate enough to get one of those. However, due to the increased caseload in juvenile court, we haven't had an additional prosecutor there since I've been here, 21 years. And with the fact that there is a new judgeship coming up, and it appears that that's going to be, they're going to divide up the juvenile docket, I have to put a position down there. So I would have to put one down there anyway when they divide it up, but right now the caseload down there is, for the delinquencies, is more than one prosecutor can really handle. So that position that I'm getting from the state, I'm going to have to put that in juvenile court, so it's not going to give any relief in adult circuit court. So that's where I'm coming here. And
Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Since this is supposedly a state-funded position, and we are already putting in to the prosecutor's office $800,000 for your budget, in addition to, what if the county says this is the state's responsibility and we don't fund these? What kind of position would that put you in?
Well, I mean, similar to what we're in now. I mean, I understand that. I understand that point, and I respect it. It's going to put us, it's going to keep us, maintain the status quo where we are now. And when you've got, I mean, my deputies are handling over 200 cases at any given point, and that's just the cases that we're handling, that have been filed and that they are, they have set for trial or otherwise. I mean, that's just a fraction of what they do on a daily basis. So, if we don't get, if the court doesn't see fit or can't see fit to, if the money's not there, then the status quo will be maintained. And I think we're still going to kind of be underwater a little bit.
Okay, J.P. Lemming.
Well, I think it's very important if we're trying to work on our jail to get the population out of the jail. I think it's very important to figure out how to pay them. That's my opinion.
Okay, J.P. Deakins.
Couple questions for you, Prosecutor Durrett.
Sure.
Are you aware of any other counties in the state of Arkansas that provide these types of positions? Have other counties had to basically supplement this?
Well, I know Benton County does. Benton County, they fund 5 positions for the prosecutor up there, and I believe they just approved an additional one for next year's budget. As for others, I don't know, and the only reason I know Benton County is just because I've got a good relationship with Nathan Smith, the prosecutor up there, so we discuss different things, and that's one thing that's come up before.
With these additional positions, do you foresee being able to make a significant and direct impact on our pretrial population in our county jail?
That's hard to say, but that's one of the goals. And I don't want to speak for the Public Defender's Office, but one thing that we have looked at as a possibility is if we had additional positions, we could focus on those individuals who are incarcerated. Perhaps have a public defender who's looking at solely dealing with those people who are incarcerated, whose cases can be moved up. A lot of it depends on the type of cases and the type of people that are currently in pretrial incarceration. So if you have someone dedicated to that, then yes, you could. To the extent, I can't come in here and make a promise that if we get 1 or 2 positions, then we're going to clear out the jail. I can't make that promise. I mean, that's one of the goals, is to help speed this process up, focus more on individuals who are currently in custody. You know, if they had a position where they could do that, we had a position where they're dealing with one person, it would help. So
Yeah. And I'm definitely not asking you to give me concrete numbers or promises or anything like that, but it would seem to make sense to me that could be an end goal of ours.
Yeah, that's one of the goals here.
Now, let me ask you this. For somebody who doesn't spend a lot of time in the court system or is not very familiar with it, it only makes sense, too, that if we add prosecutorial positions, we would also need to balance those with new public defender's office positions. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Or, I mean, we're just putting more people on one side of the equation, but it's not balanced.
And it would ease our burden, but then again, I don't know how much it would, because if you're not easing the burden across the street at the public defender's office, they're not going to have time to get to these cases. So sure, our folks will have more time, they'll be spread less thin, and they'll be able to get to all this stuff sooner and get do what we need to do to get these cases resolved. But if they're still dealing with the same number of cases, we're probably not going to get anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
J.P. Hickey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Previous question was from Justice Deakins, what other county provides personnel for their prosecutors? There's only Benton and Washington County. When we were at the AAC, Mike Rainwater made it very clear that we're the only 2 counties that fund and support our prosecutor and public defender. So that question. My other, I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion, or help me. put my, my mind wrapped around this thing. I'm a visual learner also. Flow charts, the relationship between your office and the public defender's office, and how this works along with the jails, and how do we get people out of incarceration. An overall chart, and I'm not trying to put more work on you,
Sure.
but I think that is relevant and to what this process is. If we can see the relationship, and it's almost a domino effect, if you're going to hire this one, then it's going to affect this, and then it's going to affect that. And how can we work efficiently, wisely, and prudently, and come up with a plan that probably is like, hey, we can pull this together, and now I see, and maybe this is what we can do. And I don't see that we have a plan, at least not presented to us, or maybe I'm just the one that was out of the circle of trust and didn't get the memo, but that's where my mindset is going. How can we see the flow from your office and their office and the jails, and what can we do? Because the more, I guess, information or illustrations we can see, I believe ideas can flow from that.
Right.
And right now, my brain is just kind of hopping with ideas, but I need to see that flow. Do you have any recommendations on how we can go about doing that? And don't throw me the football and say, here, there, run.
No,
with it,
I
techie.
understand, but you just.
But if you want me to, we can do that.
You're trying to understand in terms
Just the
of.
flow process between your Office of Prosecutors, you have JDC, and your personnel and your staff. Your focus is on incarceration and to speed the process, but then in doing that, you need to make sure that the public defender's office is well-staffed to handle
Yes.
the caseload, and then also the bottlenecking that's happening at the jail because they don't have those 16 positions for I think, each shift to handle when people come in. All of that, to me, ties together. It works together. And unless we understand how that your office affects this office, affects JDC, and they haven't had a judge in 21 years, that's horrible.
Well, it's,
That's awful. That's shameful, I think.
well, right now, it's all just kind of basic numbers, and it's just all kind of adding up. It's kind of like.
I think this is a perfect storm.
Well, it kind of is. And in the past few years, I'd hoped that the spike we had seen in new case filings and arrests and whatnot was just that, a spike. But it seems, fortunately, it looks like we're, the numbers are a little different, or a little difficult to decipher this year, because I try to project where we are. We've done things a little bit differently this year. So the actual case filings are going to be down, but not really. Technically they are, because what we've done is, instead of when you have a failure to appear, we've, rather than filing that as part of a new case with a new case number,
Right.
it's just added on to the underlying case. So same amount of work, just fewer actual
Sure.
numbers, but the numbers are still there, and I can say I don't know that they're going to go up this year. We're still going to be around, if you include the failures to appear, we're still going to, going under the old system would be around 4,000, 4,100 cases. And so the more cases, they're still spread out, and with this, with the bottlenecking that hopefully is going to be alleviated with the opening of the crime lab, hopefully it'll get things moving quicker, which, kind of to use an analogy, it's clearing up the drain, because for the last 4 or 5 years, the faucet's been going full blast, but the drain's going a lot slower, and so we're not getting cases out as quickly as we had in the past, because we're having to wait on a lot of things. We're having to wait on crime lab, we're having
Right.
to wait on mental evaluations and everything else. Hopefully things will start speeding up with this new crime lab, but with more individuals, you're spreading out these cases, because it's not just a matter of for us getting a case and sending discovery to the public defender and then sending an offer and going up and pleading the thing. It's, you've got to review each and every one of these cases, and you've got to, contact victims, talk to them, you've got to gather evidence, you've got to, talk to officers, talk to witnesses, and a number of things for each individual case. And on the opposite side, the public defenders, they've got to go reach out, they've got to talk to witnesses, they've got to review evidence and everything. So it's not just, so each case, and the more cases a person has, the less time they've got to accomplish all these things. And the longer it takes them to do it, then obviously the longer the case is going to drag out. And so the longer it drags out, then the longer these people are going to be sitting in jail.
Certainly.
And the longer they're sitting in jail, they're not getting out either to make room for the people that are coming in, and the numbers aren't slowing down on them coming in. If anything,
Right.
they're increasing. So if we can't get these people out of there, then you're just going to keep filling up and filling up and filling up, and people are going to be sleeping on the floor, and you're going to have a disastrous event at some point. And so I think with a collaborative effort, this is something that we've talked about to some extent. Like I said, trying to find a situation to where we can have someone focused solely on in custodies. It'll free up. I know my folks, and that's one reason why I asked for more money for another law clerk, because one of the numerous things that our deputies do is they have to review warrant requests, because that 4,000 number of the cases that we filed last year, 4,076, that accounts for cases that were filed. That doesn't, and that's a fraction of what my deputies review and go through. That's just a part of the cases that they have to review. And so you get these warrant requests that come in from law enforcement agencies. They've got to review all these cases and determine whether or not we can file a charge on some of those. So anyway, I'm kind of getting long-winded here, but that's kind of, if I'm understanding your question right, I mean, I think that when you have more people fighting the fire, there's a better chance of it getting out a lot quicker.
Certainly, and if you have a plan of action, you can go in there and tackle it
Right.
in a certain way.
Right.
And maybe not during the budget process,
Right.
but at some other time where we can, you're so smart, Willie Whitleming, Mr. Justice, sir. Maybe not during the budget process, we'll visit, so that way we can see an efficient way to best support and help your office. But we do need state support. And if anything we can do to help raise your voice during that time, we'll do it.
Right, and I mean, I think that this was just a bad year, because I know that the governor was focused on the reorganization of state government and cutting down the number of agencies, and he had made the request that there not be any new personnel requests. That's what he had asked of all the department heads. So I understand there's a finite amount of money and in state government and local government. So.
One last question. Who at the state do you contact to make your request?
Well, we have an organization, we have an association, the Arkansas Prosecuting Attorneys Association.
Okay, I got you.
And so I don't contact a legislator and say, I need positions. We, as an association, request positions. So we have one bill that funds deputy prosecutors, and that has to be reappropriated every session. So what we do is that has, if say there are 255 deputy prosecutors around the state, every year we ask for the money to fund 255 positions. When we go and request more, like this past legislative session, we asked that be funded at 266 positions. We add that to the same bill, so it's one big bill to simplify things.
I wish we could separate Washington County and Benton County from the rest of them, and maybe we could get, we're a larger population than those other smaller counties. So,
Right.
I believe we need a bigger slice of the pie. Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
J.P. Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Mr. Durrett, and thank you for being here tonight. And I appreciate your time that you spent with me when I came to your office to discuss this.
Absolutely.
I was just curious, or I wanted to point out to the court some of the points from your letter that I found extremely relevant to your case. In 2013, there were 2,147 new felony cases. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then in 2018, there were 4,076. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's doubled, basically. In your letter, you say that the numbers are just not manageable, and that, can you explain why there were, of the 2 granted positions from the state, we received 1 of those?
Okay. Well, I'll try not to ramble on this,
Sure.
but as I was telling JP Ecke, we request as an association, the Arkansas Prosecuting Attorneys Association, we submitted as one budget bill. And before we do, similar to this situation, prosecutors who are requesting additional positions submit those requests along with a letter, a justification letter to the board, to the Arkansas Prosecuting Attorney Association's board. And the board gives a yay or nay to the request, and then after we determine how many positions are going to be requested, we rank those in priority based on the criteria of when's the last time they got a position, how many cases, how far behind are they, whatnot. Rank them in priority. And we do that in situations like this past legislative session where we're requesting 11 slots and we get 2. So you'll know who those 2
And
go
that's
to.
statewide.
That's statewide.
Right.
And so the one of our positions that we had requested was 3rd in priority. Fortunately for our office, the office that was in the district that was in the 1st position only requested a part-time position, didn't need a full-time position. So 2 full-time positions were requested. So that dropped down the list to the 2nd and 3rd, and that's how I got one of the 2.
Okay, great. One other question for you. I found it interesting when we were speaking that you were saying that there's 3,400 to 5,000 cases filed each year, but a lot of the cases are not necessarily filed, but they come from, in addition to those cases that we are aware of that are on file, there's also the failure to appears and the warrant request, is that correct?
Yes.
So how many additional man hours is that? Because
There's no way to I guess give a good estimate on that, because we get hundreds of warrant requests a year.
Right.
And some of them are relatively simple, because some of them may be a delivery of meth where you just have a report that says, it's just clear-cut facts. And so those are easy to review. But then there are others that are more complicated. And it can take days, weeks to go through them, because you can't sit there and, when you get a warrant request, like, say, a sex assault or something like that, where you're going to be meeting with the victim, you're going to be meeting with officers, determining whether or not there's enough evidence to file. So it's going to be very time-consuming. You can't sit down in one sitting and deal with it, because you're having to wait on other evidence, like a suspect interview, a victim interview. So it can take days, weeks, even months from the time you get it until the time a decision's been made. And this is kind of, they're doing this while they're handling their regular caseload and all the other warrant requests that are stacking up on their desk and all the other things they do between mental commitments and taking phone calls from law enforcement or witnesses or whatnot, or having to go down to do arraignments at the jail, or going down to the sheriff's office to teach the law enforcement the classes that we teach down there. So it's just kind of, they're trying to squeeze, an 8 to 12 hour day into, it's just
Right.
trying to do as much as they can in as little amount of time as possible.
one more thing, and I just wanted to say that I have determined from speaking with you and speaking with the public defender's office that you're both sorely in need of new attorneys, and I will support you on this. But just to help the court understand some more, the continuancies. The people sitting in jail
Right.
that have, I mean, we're talking about they're serving 6 to 9 months on average, is that correct? I mean, depending on the case.
Yeah, depending on the case, and that's probably a better question for Randall Denzer, I guess, because he can see how long the average person's in there, but
As far as
that wouldn't surprise me.
Right, so the backlog is causing continuancies, which is causing people to sit in jail longer than necessary. Would you say that's the truth?
I would say to some extent it is, because, you know, there are a number of reasons why cases get continued, be it from waiting on crime lab to waiting on a mental evaluation.
Right.
There are some cases that are just going to take longer. And those,
Right.
fortunately, are few. The numbers aren't that huge on, you know, a homicide or a rape case. You know, because some of those you're waiting on DNA and other things.
Right.
But those are more complex cases, and those are going to take a little longer.
Right.
But a lot of them are just, it's just a number of things. Like I said, the majority of continuances are probably based on crime lab or mental evaluation, so hopefully that will speed up a little bit. But a lot of it is, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but, you know, a lot of it is as requesting additional discovery, because nowadays as technology increases, you're getting more and more things, more and more evidence coming in, because you're going to have body cams and dash cams, and we don't ask for body cams and dash cams on every single case, simply because, well, for a couple of reasons, is it takes so long to record those and get them over, because we have to make a request of the arresting agency, and then we then have to make copies, and it's time consuming, but also just sheer space. We don't have the digital space to store all this stuff, so that means we'd have to burn
So
it, which increases
basically,
time.
would you say that with additional help, that would
I mean, it could,
expedite the process?
because nowadays, the requests aren't made early enough, because public defenders can't get to it soon enough. They can't, when they get a file in, you know, they're going to, and they can answer this better than I can, but, you know, they get a file in, say it's a routine traffic stop where they found methamphetamine. They'd get their case, they'd review it and see what all they've got, see what, you know, witnesses they need to talk to, but see what other evidence they don't have. But now, sometimes it's not until the first court date when this request is made, because that's how long it takes them to get to it, because they've got all their other cases that they're dealing
their
with.
backlog.
And so they don't get to start to look at this to say,
Right.
oh, I need this, until, you know, we're 2 months into the process, because of all the other stuff they've got going on.
Thank you.
So that's another thing.
Thank you, and I recommend any JP approach any of these leaders, because they are so willing to talk, and I appreciate the time that you gave me, sir. Thank
Absolutely,
you.
absolutely, anytime.
Okay, J.P. Bowman.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess one of the things that come to my mind, I know that this group called Harbor House was talking about working with people to go into treatment programs and doing plea agreements. Are you guys having any contact with them, or any possibilities that could help minimize your load?
I have not myself. That was discussed. I can't remember who had talked about that, because they've got a place up in Springdale, I believe, up there kind of by Neal's.
Here in Fayetteville,
Oh, they got one here in
right here
Fayetteville.
close by.
Okay. Well, is that the outfit that came to the Quorum Court meeting that time?
I think so.
Okay. Well, anyway, I have not. But kind of as I've been saying all along in the process, when we're dealing with the jail overcrowding, that I'm willing to look into anything, you know, as long as it fits the needs of kind of society, for lack of a better term, as long as you know, it's going to achieve the goals that we're looking for, and you know, as long as it's not just to open the jail to let people out, as long as it serves a function, which it sounds like if it's a rehabilitation center, then
I have the
good.
guy's information. I'll get that to you and let you call him, talk to him.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Well, we're giving you over $800,000 now, and if we go on and fund the two positions, it will be over $900,000. I know you need the people. I did talk with Bart Hester the day before yesterday, and, said that Washington County was funding the prosecutor's office and that it was time for the state to step up and help us. And his reply was, find the money somewhere in your budget to do it. Or, then he said, how much is Fayetteville and Springdale paying? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know that they're paying anything. And then the idea came up, since we're doing with the jail, of per capita to raise money to cover the jail. Maybe somewhere we could charge cities and the county a per capita for the number of cases you handle. Also, that would be for the public defender. I think this is something that's very worthwhile for us to look into. We might need some legislation to be able to do this. If, the state's limited in funds, we are definitely limited in funds also. So that's just an idea. Yes. J.P. Ecke.
I have a question for you, Madam Chair. How do you propose that we go about approving this budget?
Well, we have set aside new positions in some of our people that have requested, and then the court has approved other positions. I would suggest that we set it aside till November the 12th. That doesn't mean we're not going to fund the position. We're just trying to find more funds available. I think I have been misunderstood in the past when I tried to do this, that, that we were freezing, that we weren't going to fill these positions or what. These people need positions just as bad as other people in the county. So
Would you
whatever
recommend-
is the pleasure of the court.
Would you recommend then that we, for the November 12th meeting, prioritize the positions from critical, essential, necessary? It would be nice.
If you would like to do that, I certainly would be in favor of it. Yes, J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that the county is bearing the burden in increased jail costs and court expenses and potential lawsuits heading our way if we don't take care of this now. I move to pass this budget.
All right. I have a motion to pass the budget, and I have a second. Yes, J.P. Yanis.
So looking at the expenses, this is through June 30th. We don't have the updated. I checked our email, and it also goes through June 30th. So can we get an update on the expenses to ensure that what's being budgeted is appropriate?
Okay, I don't quite
So,
understand.
the
Okay,
expenditures-
what has been spent?
So what we have in front of us is up
Yes.
to June 30th. I checked
Okay.
our email, and it's also that worksheet up to June 30th. Some of these requested budgets, because we don't have updated expenditures in front of us, we can't tell if it's being over budgeted. We can't.
Well, okay, I don't. Well, I can't answer that question at this time. I will try to have those questions available the next time we meet. Or we can reschedule a meeting to look at that. The only thing, we have the budget summaries that Treasurer Hill has prepared, and right at this point, we have $4.5 million unappropriated reserves. That's the number you really need to be looking at, but we do not have any salaries. The only positions that we have in that at this time are the 16 positions that the sheriff requested. There are no other positions. I have asked Shannon Worthen to prepare for this next week some projections of where we are, putting in salaries and numbers of positions. I've asked him to put in all of the positions, and he will do a raise of 2%, 3%, and 4% and show how much money that's going to cost. And then he's going to, I asked him to do 3 or 2. One of them was everything that everybody wanted, to see how much it was. And then the next step was that we cut in half the new positions with the raises and see how much that is. And that information should be available Monday.
Okay. With all due respect, so we're asking to approve this budget right now,
Yes.
but we don't have updated expenditures on this right now. And Shannon Worthen did send us an email with expenditures up to, I believe, October 22nd, but this budget was not updated.
Oh, okay. The actual expenditures that have occurred. Okay,
Yes.
well, I'm sure that Shannon can get those to us. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it is just quite a bit. One thing I'm looking at, and I don't know when you pay, Mr. Jarrett, your dues and memberships. If it's due at the end of the year, or if it's due, which quarter? It's just, what it is that if you would look at the 2019 expenses, and you go down, and I'm not micromanaging, it's your sandbox, you can play with it however way you want. But there is quite a large
It's on the floor.
Okay. it's on the
Amount.
floor.
But there's still discussion.
Go on. You've been
There is quite
recognized.
a variance between what has been expended and what has been budgeted.
Right.
And if you really don't need that, then we're just saying like, if we have that money, could we move it around and then therefore support this? That's all we're trying to get a good picture on, because right now, the way it states,
And
just
I-
to say it's through the end of June, we don't know what's coming, and we don't know when your dues or your education or your training or your travel, we don't know any of that. But the way it looks is there's a wide variance between what's been expended and what has been budgeted.
I can tell you, that's one of our more consistent line items. Especially if you look back, you can see that it's gone 25, 25, and 29, and that includes Westlaw, the dues for Westlaw for legal research, it's bar dues, our
So
bar
is
licenses.
it due in like December? Is
I
it
think
due?
so.
Okay.
I think so. I mean,
We just
my
wanna
office
know.
manager would know for sure.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you. I mean, I know that is one line item that we're pretty consistent on. Some others, it depends. I mean, like
Yeah.
the other professional services, traditionally, that's been one where we've had more turnback than any other line items. And the reason why we ask for a lot there is because that is where we get, one of the main things is transcripts, from interview transcripts. And we have it's not an insignificant number. I mean, I don't know that's a high number, but we have Spanish-speaking defendants. And by rule, if we have a Spanish-speaking defendant and they give an interview, if we want to introduce a
Certainly.
transcript in trial, we have to get a certified transcript, which those are $5,000, $6,000, maybe even $7,000. So that's an area, that's really the main one, the main line item where if there's going to be some turnback, it's going to be in that one. because we tend to over budget there simply because if we need it and it's not there, then I may have to come to the quorum court and ask for more.
You don't wanna do that.
And I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm happy to if we need
No,
to.
I understand,
Sure.
but what's hard for us to see is,
Right. And
Not
if I had
updated.
noticed that, I didn't notice the
Well,
date on there. I could have.
to give credit to whom credit's due.
Right.
JPN has pointed out, but JP
Sure.
Eki, you're not looking at the right number, and I went, oh, there it is, so we looked at it, and there it is.
Yeah, and if I had noticed that, which I didn't, I could have had my office manager run an up-to-date,
Yeah.
but I
We
didn't do
just
that.
wanted to know, to
Sure,
better support
absolutely.
you and understand that this is not just your little slush fund here and there to
Right.
ask for whatever. And I think you understand that.
I do, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, JP Eki. JP Pond?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to say, I appreciate what you do and the struggles you have with the crowd of people coming through there. And I also feel like the added staff is much needed. But I do want to say that I would rather wait to vote on this until we get the rest of our numbers come in because of the added staff and everything that's on it. And so if people insist on voting on this tonight, I won't be able to.
Well, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. JP Deakins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo what J.P. Pond is saying. I think there's very much a demonstrated need here, and I think you've done a very good job of laying that out. The issue here is we already have a budget crunch in Washington County, and I will want us to be very careful as we consider and wade into the fact of taking on what is traditionally a state obligation. I think we'll be married to that for forever. I very seriously doubt that next year the state's going to come in and say, hey, I saw you picked up 2 prosecuting positions and we would like to reimburse you and take that obligation on from here on out. So I would implore my colleagues to please let's put these new positions aside and look at updated numbers. I think we're spending money faster than we realize, and we might need to see the overall effect of what we're doing here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree, we need to look at the numbers, but I also, we have to look at the expense that we're paying in incarceration for the county. We have to look at the burden. We have to look at the burden on the public defender's office and the prosecuting attorney's office. They are overworked. They need additional help. There's no doubt about that. Go and sit with them in their offices and speak with them and speak with their staff. They are in need of this help. Their law clerks are paid $12 an hour. It's an absolute necessity, and we are going to be paying more out to the county, to the jail for the fees of the incarcerated than what would ever cost to give the district or the prosecuting attorney who he needs to help him in his office.
Okay, I'm going to end debate. I'm going to go on and end debate, and all those, we have a motion on the floor to pass this budget as is. We have a vote.
Move to table this until the rest of the numbers come in.
Second.
All right. The motion to table overrides, correct? Overrides the motion to vote. All those in favor of tabling the motion, raise your hand. All right. The motion is to table until November the 12th. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're ready for the public defender. It's 458, 459, I think. welcome Public Defender Denny Highslip. He's been here a long time.
40 years.
40 years, okay. So, we're ready for your, I can't remember your assistant, I'm sorry.
I'm Leanna Houston, I'm the Chief Deputy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harbison.
You may proceed.
We are requesting 3 additional attorneys. Many of the issues that Mr. Durrett brought up apply equally as well to us. The criminal case filings have gone up almost double in the last 2 years. We have not had an additional attorney in over 20 years. As you heard him say, the jail is overcrowded. We need more attorneys so that we can process those inmates and move them along. The judges' dockets are in a situation where they can only put so many cases on the docket per day because they don't have enough public defenders and prosecutors to handle them. We are, we have been able to adjust to the increasing caseload for years, but we're just at a breaking point.
Okay, J.P. Deakins?
Thank you, Mr. Highslip, and 40 years is quite the accomplishment. I appreciate your service in the office.
Thank you.
I want to ask you some of the same questions I asked Prosecutor Durrett. Do you believe that these new positions would have a direct impact on our population in our jail right now today, if you had these in the office?
Yes, I think they'll definitely have an impact. We just, you know, we have to be able to get down to see our clients, and we're just unable to do that the way we should be doing it.
I have a statistical question for you, and if I know that, of course, didn't prepare you for this, so if you can't answer it tonight, can you please try to provide me with that in the future? Of our pretrial detainees in our prison, our county jail right now, do you have any ballpark percentage on any of those who are represented by the public defender's office? What percentage of those pretrial?
Probably 90 to 95%.
Okay. I think those are all my questions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Are there any other questions? J.P. Bowman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are y'all getting any information how soon the drug lab in Lowell is going to be producing results?
I really haven't heard. I don't know if they've actually opened it or not, even. I know it's going to be open pretty soon if it hasn't.
I think it is up and running and they're starting to get results back.
Okay.
What is the time?
Well, I know that it's been a very long drag time in getting drug tests back, and a lot of the cases we're dealing with are drug-related.
It's been 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
Normally.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is your anticipated turnaround for the drug lab in giving them the information and receiving information? This is going to cut down time by how much do you anticipate? Is it going to be 6 weeks, 3 weeks, 9 months? Right now, it's 6 to 8 months is what you said, correct?
Correct.
So this crime lab should help
I'd say maybe half. I mean,
by
just a
half? I mean,
guess.
that's great. I mean, half, at least we know.
Years and years ago, we had a big backlog, and they added more staff to the Little Rock Crime Lab. So we did have a period of time where the wait was not as long, maybe 3 or 4 months, and we
Okay.
would only need 1 or 2 continuances. But then over time, it got to be backlogged again, so we're now back to 6
Certainly.
and 8 months. And those are on drug crimes, but things where you're waiting on DNA and all takes even longer. But I suspect at some point, not to be pessimistic, but I suspect at some point the Lowell
Sure.
lab is going to start
It's
getting
gonna
backed
start
up,
feeling-
too,
sure.
just because the population in Northwest Arkansas is growing so fast.
We live in an ideal world. It's perfect. It's paradise. What would you like to see your anticipated return on the information from, let's just start with the drug lab. What really would be a great turnaround time for you?
Probably in 3 or 4 months would be wonderful, because They're usually arraigned within 30 days from their arrest.
Okay,
And then their first trial date is set 60 days from their arraignment, so within 90 days from their arrest. And if we could go to court and have their crime lab, then we would have a lot of the discovery ready to go right then, and that would be nice.
okay. And as far as DNA?
That's always just taken so much longer, because I guess because it's such
Certainly.
a harder test.
Certainly.
And the way they run it, and there's several steps to that test to first determine what kind of specimen they're looking at, and then go from there.
Is that done at Lowell? Or is that
I don't know if they're
outsourced somewhere
doing
else?
that.
Where
I
is
know
it?
that Little Rock does it.
Is it Little Rock?
Yeah,
Okay, so Little Rock is going to continue to do DNA,
right. And that's important on
Evidence.
the rape cases and the murder cases mostly.
and that takes, you said, 6 to 8 months for DNA or longer?
Sometimes I've had it take almost a year.
Almost a year. Okay. I don't want to add any more work to you, believe me. But do you have already the process written out of from the time the crime to the arraignment to trial to sending off for drug lab to this, to that? Do you have like a flow chart to that process?
I don't have a flow chart, and we don't send off the crime lab. The police send that. They
police
collect
send
the
off.
evidence, and then they
No,
drive
but you
it.
could put like, this is, this person we interviewed, ba-da-da-da, and then put like in parentheses, law enforcement sent off to crime lab, we're waiting. Because that all has an impact on what you all do, correct?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Boy. As all I can say is my heart just feels for y'all, and the tremendous job that y'all do is incredible. Do you all understand, or is it clear that we want to fund these positions, but we need the state support? So by perhaps tabling it until the November 12th so we can gather more information on how we can get these funded properly, would that be okay?
I saw that Mr. Whitaker, is he still?
Yeah, he's still.
If it's appropriate, may I ask?
Yes.
Madam Chair, may he speak for a moment? as
Yes.
to the state funding?
Yes.
Certainly.
I was asking,
You're gonna have to turn it back on. You're gonna have to turn it back on.
Representative Whitaker, she would like for you to speak on the funding. Would you be willing to do that?
You need to do,
could offer you any assurance at this point.
Well, you might give us an idea. Would you like to come to the microphone, please?
thank you.
Yes, I know. Your solution.
You want to hear it?
No.
Mr. Lemony Soup.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
State Representative David Whitaker, District 85. I can give you a general sense of the feeling in Little Rock. I can't give you specifics. We haven't even had budget hearings ourselves yet for the coming year. I can tell you this, there is little sympathy south of here for your plight. Benton and Washington County are seen as two, and rightfully so to a certain extent, as two of the most prosperous counties in the state. And we are. And there are about 73 other counties who are probably not, their representatives not going to be inclined to send money this direction. I'm not saying you won't get anything. I'm just saying it shouldn't be your first and last hope, because it's totally speculative. We'd have to see where that money would come from. I wish I could give you better news, and as we move our timeline, we'll know better where that is. But honestly,
Would you kind of look into maybe a fee structure of some kind that, I don't know, I talked with Brian today about this, and he wasn't sure that we could do investigate and see if we could charge either the client or the cities or the county. The county has a person in this also, but we need to come up with some way to raise funds. Okay, we're getting ready for census. And we're gonna go from 18% down to 17%, and the cities, in our 1 cent sales tax. So our revenue is shrinking. So this is an issue too. If, the state's gonna fund these positions, then, we would like to be funded. And it should be according to population and need, not because of wealth or whatever. Just a minute. Okay.
If I could respond.
Yes.
The concepts you're talking about do not exist. We would be at a phase where we'd be having to take input from folks at Association of Counties, Municipal League, bring in our research attorneys in the Bureau of Legislative Research to look at it, and of course taking input from counties and cities on how to do some sort of different type of funding mechanism. Because I can tell you, it's going to be needed, because you're not, the pressures you're feeling on where do we get the money are the same ones that the governor's staff and the legislature and the budget committee have to deal with in Little Rock. There's just not money falling out of the sky anywhere, not here, not in Little Rock. But a funding mechanism that's agreed upon is probably your best chance. That's going to be little help to you this cycle. But down the road, you'll need to do something.
Okay. J.P. Jenkins?
Can we let Mr. Whitaker go sit down now? My question was pertaining to the public defender's office.
Well, I think he answered our question, but we do need a mechanism.
My question is to Ms.
Yes.
To Representative Whitaker, though.
Oh, okay.
Before he leaves.
Okay, you may ask your question.
Okay. You said it's hard to get traction for funding for Washington and Benton County because we're seen as the more prosperous counties and therefore our need is less. However, because of Washington and Benton County, a lot more revenues go down to Little Rock.
And that's the way they like it.
I know.
And we need some of it.
Well, we
You
like it
understand that.
for it come back and let our tax dollars help support and fund that, and that needs to be our platform. These smaller counties, fine, they get funded off of our tax revenues, and we get thrown under the bus. And I think it's time that we, from Washington and Benton, say, wait a minute, we need our tax dollars to come back to us and to work for us and keep our communities safe. And we do need that. And it is, you can hear the crisis. So your support and your help in raising that voice will be greatly appreciated. And I thank you for your time.
And let me assure you, I was trying to convey what the representatives of the other 74 counties, their point of view. I assure you that everybody in the delegations here in Northwest Arkansas stands strong every day trying to make sure that you get a return on your investment, that the money's, it's not simply just one big pipeline headed southeast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions for our Representative Whitaker? Do you have a question for
I
Representative
have a
Whitaker?
comment to Representative Whitaker. I want to
Okay.
thank him for being completely honest and bringing us the picture. That's how it's been for for a long time. Seems like forever to me, but we're the golden goose up here. And they're gonna milk us, basically. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. Okay, you have a question for Leanne, for the
Thank you,
public
Representative
defender.
Whitaker. I know you were on the spot. Okay, so let me grab my thoughts back to me again. Okay, So thank you, Mr. Heislip and Ms. Houston, for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. Could you tell me when the last time an attorney was hired for your office?
40 years ago.
20 years ago.
I asked.
Are you saying a new attorney hired to fill an old position? Or?
Yes. Or, well, when
we
was
just
the
hired
last
somebody
time
the
a
last
position was filled?
few
So no, there's been no increases since what year?
Since before 2000.
Before the year 2000?
1998.
Okay, so over 19 years, okay. And according to, when we discussed this, is it true, is it right that you have one juvenile attorney in the office?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there's going to be a new juvenile court opening soon, correct?
Correct.
So do you foresee that being an issue?
Yes, it's already a problem where we don't have enough bodies or attorney bodies to send to all of the courts we're having to cover. Because we also do mental cases and adult protective service cases. We cover Madison County, and that's taking 4 attorneys. So some days when I have attorneys scattered everywhere and I get a new mental in, and those are set immediately for a hearing, I don't have a body to send to that court to cover it sometimes. And if we have another court to cover, we just don't have the people to send there.
Are there any?
I have one more question. So I also read in your justification letter that according to the American Bar Association, your caseloads are too large. Is that correct?
That's correct. The American Bar Association makes recommendations of what they see as appropriate for public defenders to handle in caseloads. And for years, ours has way exceeded that. And so it becomes an issue about, whether we are adequately representing our clients and whether we're doing what the Bar Association says we're ethically supposed to do. And that becomes a fear that we start worrying about when our caseloads are this big.
Thank you. And I'd just like to address the court that when speaking with them today, I was told that there are 1,099 felony cases pending right now. 1,099.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
J.P. Lemming?
I just want to make a comment. The comment I want to make is the way we can settle this is move the governor and the governor's mansion up here and we'll have it fixed.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, J.P. Bowman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Or is there any contribution from Madison County to
Yes.
cover these costs?
Yes, their clients do pay into the system. At arraignments, they're charged a user fee that comes into the system. And then when they plead on probation, they are charged $150 public defender fee that comes into the system. And then Madison County also has money coming in.
Okay. Is there a similar request going to Madison County for the increases you need?
No, I think there's an ordinance that was passed a number of years ago where they pay a percentage of the budget, or that's my understanding.
I remember in the past at these meetings with the budget part that they've made a presentation about how much was paid in from Madison County and from the clients.
Well, I guess if we were going to be asked to add a couple of extra positions here, if they wouldn't be sharing a proportionate share of that. Can you check on that and get back to us about some details there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that might be a question for our attorney to look that up because of how that is funded, because it was probably put in effect 20, 30, 40 years ago. So, are there any other questions? All right, what is the pleasure of the court on this budget?
I move to pass.
All right, we have a due pass, and it fails for a lack of a second. So we'll be postponing it till November the 12th. Yes, J.P. Pond. I'm sorry.
Then our intent is to see to it that we can accommodate you on some of these requests, and they are much needed. That's the way I'm seeing it. Is that correct?
Yes.
We know you have a need that you and the prosecutor both. and we will do our best to do something about it.
I got one other comment to make.
Yes.
And it's not just simply on this issue, but a lot of these others. If we can't sit and wait for Little Rock to help us, we've been sitting and waiting a long time and look at the shape we're in. That's just not gonna happen. Anybody says we're waiting for the state to kick in, all you're doing is just stalling, kicking the can down the road. And thank y'all for coming forward. We get some money, some numbers together, we'll see where we can see what we can do. I'm pretty sure you can get some votes. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Just a comment. Please
JP?
understand that we intend to support you the best way we can. And just go home with that reassurance that we will do our utmost. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. We're ready for public comment. Was it 12 minutes with a 3-minute limit? All right. Yes.
Hi, I'm Norma Frisbee. I'm the Director for Juvenile Court. Judge Zimmerman actually was wanting to be here. She sends her apologies. She had surgery and was not able to make it. So on her behalf, just wanted to make a comment that Juvenile Court supports the request of the Public Defender's Office and the Prosecutor's Office. Mainly, you know, we are having a second juvenile court, a second juvenile judge, and it sounds that although the state has given the prosecutor's office a position for a prosecutor, and it will be going to juvenile court, that is going to affect the public defender's office with not having a second juvenile public defender. Mr. Tufo, I can testify, he is there almost every single day in juvenile court. And not only does he just have to be in court, he has to meet with the clients previously to having court. So he is sometimes there at 7 in the morning, if not sooner than that. He stays just as late as juvenile, Judge Zimmerman stays for court. And we have sometimes, our Mondays are usually 10-hour days. And then our Tuesdays are usually between 8 and 10-hour days also. Our public defender and our prosecutor, they're there every day with us too. So it's long hours. The problem for the public defender, it's not that it's going to cause a problem in the future. We do have a problem right now. He is one person seeing all these cases. And with juvenile courts, it's not quite as easy. We have detention hearings. We have revocation hearings. We have review hearings because our cases are ongoing. So constantly we have review hearings with our cases. So even if they get disposed of at adjudication, there might be issues that come up. Our public defender has to be there to represent them. So we do have a great need for those positions to be supported. That's all I had to say.
All right, thank you. Anyone else want to make a comment? Please give your name.
Beth Koger, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I just want to say I don't know where the court's going to find the money to pay for these positions, but I have no idea, but I hope that the court will go through every budget, starting with Judge Woods all the way down, line by line. Maybe you've already done that, but if you have, it's not obvious to us sitting out here in the audience. Another thing that I'd like to mention is that if those positions are funded, they'd more than pay for themselves in a very short period of time. I spent one day in court watching. Well, I mean, I spent lots of days in court watching, but just from this one day, there were 5 cases, total jail days of 476 days. That's $29,512. And all but one case was dismissed, was suspended in position of sentence or probation. Only one of those cases ended up with the person going to the ADC. One of them spent 160 days in jail at $9,920, and he got a 12-month suspended sentence. And these positions would make up for that. I think it would save the county, just on this one day, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But another thing that hasn't even been mentioned tonight, and I'm kind of disappointed it hasn't come up, is freedom. A basic American concept of freedom. These people are sitting in jail, because our public defender and our prosecutors, not all of them are there for that, but these cases could move through quicker and get these people out and back in society, supporting their families. Thank you.
Is there any other comments? Please state your name.
Yeah, I'm Dale Heath, and I live in Fayetteville. I would like to make a case for the situation that happens to individuals who are detained beyond 3 days. Now, 3 days is minor next to 9 months. The whole thrust of the jail committee has been how to move people out of jail, how to get them on their way. People who spend 3 days in detention are 40% more likely to return to jail. I can find the source for that information. It is very critical. So when Beth speaks to freedom, we're talking about social justice that is terribly important, terribly important. And that individuals are required to sit in jail for 9 months for a lack of process is something that is the most serious situation that we need to really try and address. One other thing I'd like to say is that there is a difference between our total incarcerated population and what we're talking about tonight. So I do not want to conflate those two issues. But every time I come to the quorum court, I hear about people on the floor, which is a terrible thing to have. And I worry that there's going to be an incident of people on the floor that will put the whole thing on fire, and that will be a serious development. We have 72 inmates who are federal detainees. We have 30 or 40 that are Madison County detainees. How many people do we have sleeping on the floor? 100. How could we get rid of those 100 people on the floor? We could get rid of the federal arrangement, which can be canceled at any time on 30 days' notice, and we could say to Madison County, handle your own business, because it's our tax dollars that are going to handle Madison County. And one other point I would make is that the cost, we're presented from the sheriff's office with the notion of revenue, that these detainees that we take on, these 100, not even to mention ICE, we'll leave ICE off the table for the moment, that these 100 detainees provide X amount of money. Do you know that what that revenue flow is exactly what it costs us to detain them? So that's smoke and mirrors, people. There is nothing there that's fair, or it's smoke and mirrors. It's not true. So that's all I have to say. There were so many probing questions that you raised tonight that I'm telling you this was a very satisfying quorum court session tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Oh, just a minute.
I just want to say one thing, if I may. Blake Chancellor, and I'm a public defender here in Washington County. Briefly, I just want to say, I know I've been to several of these, and we keep talking about the crime labs. Respectfully, relying on that to change the speed of this process is not what's holding this back. We do not just wait on crime lab to appear. Even in those cases where we are waiting on crime lab, there is still negotiation on both sides, investigation on both sides. So relying on crime lab to somehow speed this process up doesn't change my obligations, and it doesn't change the prosecutor's obligations during that time. So I want to tell you that reliance on that crime lab, yes, there are some things that will speed up, But on these pretrial detentions, I mean, I just came from the jail here after seeing people trying to work out cases. So that's still being done. The other thing is, respectfully, just personally, I'm going to say this. I appreciate the opinions that you want more information. I'm going to one-up you, though, on that. If you want more information, come spend a day with me. Come sit in my office. I will show you what everything we go through. So if you want more information, and it's not just the budget, I invite every single one of you to come to my office, sit down, and I will show you my files. I will show you what we do all day. I will walk you through the process from, as you said, your timeline, from arrest to 8.1 to arraignment to when we get the file to how we deal with the file. I'll walk you through all that. So if you really want all the information, then hopefully you'll take me up on that offer.
Thank you. Okay, J.P. Lemming.
I think we really trust what you're doing, and we know you're really behind, and we know you're really busy, but we're not saying that we're waiting on our dollar numbers. We're not waiting on, I don't need the information you're trying to give us, because I know you're totally overcrowded, and I know you're totally busy, and you need more help. I understand that, and that's, you do, and you're going to get it if I can help you. All of you's going to get every one of them if I can help you. But we got to wait on our numbers. Like we've all said, all of our numbers is 2 months old. In November or December, when it lays out here on the desk and we have all the good numbers in front of us, we'll have a good way to pull the plug and say, yes, you're going to get it, let's go. And that's what we got to do. And we all know that jail is a big monster, and it's been kicked down the road for 6 years. This new Corn Court here got a mess, and we've got to deal with it. And we're going to deal with it. We're young and we're eager, we'll get it. But just give us a little time too. I think you're kind of getting a little hostile and kind of acted that way to me, but I'm just saying, we're going to help you. Thank you.
You want to make a comment?
Just one brief on that. If I
Okay.
came off hostile, I did not mean to at all. I apologize.
No.
And I may have a tendency to do that. I think Tara would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this, in comment to what you're saying is, I totally believe that if you had the money, you want to do what you want to do. But my only comment to this is that until you have that perspective, I think that when you do get that information and have that money or deciding how to disseminate out that money, I think that if you come see how that process works and have more information, that may give you a different context when evaluating where to divvy out what you do have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Okay, our 12 minutes is up, unless we have a motion to extend.
Trust me.
I have a
make it
motion
short.
to let you speak.
My name is Mike Robertson. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Public Defender Commission or even our office. As a citizen, I do work with Blake. I don't want y'all coming down to my office, so you don't have to worry about that. But I will tell you, there were some questions that I heard get brought up here today from some of the folks. And criminal justice, our system here is a way that we handle disputed facts. So the idea that you can throw as many resources as you want at something, there's one thing that I will never be able to answer. And that is going to be that every individual that is hailed into court and charged with a felony has a right to a trial by jury. If there's a disputed fact, the Constitution and the Sixth Amendment requires that defense counsel be adequate. As the number goes up of people that are getting arrested and charged with crimes, then the system is going to grow. And I know that y'all are charged with a difficult task of trying to allocate scarce resources. That goes to law enforcement, prosecutor, roads, fire, EMS. It's a lot. I've only lived here about 16 years. But I have watched this county grow extensively. There's a lot of government in this county. There's a lot of mayors. There's a lot of police chiefs. There's a lot of that. And I don't know, my 2 cents would be that if people maybe get some policies more on the same page, then maybe that'll kind of help alleviate some of it. But at the end of the day, it's going to cost more money because it's getting bigger. And I just would like to say that I do appreciate everybody listening to the request for more attorneys. But as a realist, I can't promise you that you can throw as much at it as you want. But if my client wants to go to trial, I've got to do it. And I don't know what that costs. But I think that as a democracy, there's a price that's been paid for that, and we should honor that to the best that we can. But I don't know what the money may be, but I know that a price has been paid to allow everybody too poor to have a lawyer. And we're doing the best we can, and so are y'all, and we're trying to make the system work to the best of our ability. But I felt like I wanted to add that holding us to statistics or standards about how accurate we can get this projected cost is tough. It's going to be hard to give you exactly what this is going to cost. I can tell you what some French fries at Wendy's cost, but I don't know what it costs to honor the Sixth Amendment. But I know that we can use all the help that y'all can muster if there's money for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Second. We are adjourned.